There is a chapter in Elvis Presley's life that few fans truly know, a chapter involving friendship, loyalty, and a rumor that crossed generations. Tom Jones called Elvis his brother. The two shared the stage, laughter, secrets, and even late-night gospel sessions. But years after the King's passing, a mysterious rumor began circulating around the world. Tom Jones was getting a little too close to Priscilla Presley. Today, in this video, I'm going to walk you through documents, interviews, and accounts from Tom himself that show what really happened. And I guarantee you, this story will stir something inside your fan heart. Don't go anywhere. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something and answer honestly. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear Tom Jones connected to the life of Elvis Presley? Loyal friendship? Hidden backstage moments? Or that rumor no one knows if it's truth or just media imagination? Drop your opinion in the comments right now because it helps us understand how each fan sees this hidden chapter of the King's story. And I promise you, you're going to want to compare your thoughts with what comes next. When we talk about great friendships in music history, few are as surprising, powerful, and emotionally deep as the one that united Elvis Presley and Tom Jones. It is a friendship that didn't begin on stage, but in the quiet hallways of a Hollywood film studio, in a moment that completely changed the way Tom viewed his own work and the way Elvis saw other artists who were starting to emerge at the time. It all began in 1965, when Tom Jones was still not the absolute phenomenon he would later become. He had already released a few hits, but was still seen by many as the Welshman with the powerful voice trying to find his place among so many other artists seeking to shine in America. That year, Tom was invited to visit the filming of one of Elvis's movies at Paramount. He said years later that he arrived at the studio nervous, imagining that the biggest star in music might not even know who he was. But to his surprise, as soon as Tom entered the room, Elvis stopped what he was doing, turned toward him, and began singing "With These Hands." Tom was completely thrown off. There stood the most famous man on the planet, the King of Rock, singing one of his songs as a greeting. It wasn't just a musical gesture. It was a gesture of respect, recognition, and genuine curiosity from Elvis. This encounter marked the beginning of something that would develop quickly. Elvis was extremely selective with the people he allowed into his inner circle, and many artists who knew him said he had a special sensitivity to detect who was genuine and who was simply trying to get close to fame. With Tom, Elvis felt something different. He saw authenticity, artistic courage, and above all, he saw a singer whose vocal power and stage presence reminded him of the energy he himself had at the start of his career. Soon after, Elvis attended a Tom Jones show in Las Vegas. Tom was at his peak, delivering a vibrant performance with his powerful voice echoing through the casino. When the show ended, Elvis went backstage to Tom. He was excited, saying the show had rekindled something inside him. Elvis had spent a period away from the stage, focusing on movies, and many fans missed that electric live Elvis. After seeing Tom Jones sing, Elvis reportedly said he needed to return to the stage, that he needed to feel that again. This moment is considered by many music historians as one of the sparks that helped Elvis reclaim his live performance career, culminating in his historic shows in Las Vegas. What brought the two even closer, however, wasn't the stage, but the behind-the-scenes moments. At the Hilton Hotel in Vegas, where they both often stayed, it was common for Elvis to drop by Tom's room late at night, not to talk about career or fame, but to sing. The two shared a deep passion for gospel music. Beneath the shine of rock and soul, both carried an emotional connection to the spiritual songs they heard during childhood. And so, night after night, Elvis and Tom met in intimate gatherings, just the two of them and a few close musicians, singing gospel songs that moved them. According to Tom, these moments were when Elvis was his truest self, more human, more sensitive. Away from fans, away from media pressure, away from the weight of the King title, Elvis was simply a man who loved music, who sought comfort, and who found in Tom someone he could share that part of himself with. And before we move on to the next chapter of this story, I want to ask you something. As an Elvis fan, what surprises you the most about this friendship between him and Tom Jones? The gesture of respect during their first meeting? The late-night gospel sessions in Las Vegas? Or the fact that Elvis found in Tom a true friend amid the chaos of fame? Comment below. I really want to know how this friendship resonates with you. The friendship also extended to small gestures. Tom shared that once he had issues with his backing vocal group during a performance season. Elvis discreetly stepped in to help him, recommending other singers and offering backstage support. Elvis never bragged about it. He wasn't seeking credit. That's why Tom says Elvis was a true friend, someone who helped without expecting anything in return. Another important aspect of their relationship is that it was built on equality. Tom always made it clear that he never put Elvis on a pedestal during their private conversations. He respected him deeply, of course, but he spoke to him like he would speak to a brother. And Elvis valued that. He didn't want flatterers. He was surrounded by people who said yes to everything, and Tom's honesty was almost therapeutic. As the friendship grew, so did their mutual admiration. Elvis said Tom had one of the most powerful voices he had ever heard live. Tom, in turn, said Elvis had charisma and musical sensitivity that couldn't be replicated. They inspired each other, and that connection left lasting marks on both their careers. This is the foundation of the story, a deep friendship built on respect, music, vulnerability, and companionship. A bond so strong that, decades later, it would become a central part of conversations about both men. And it's precisely because of this depth that the rumors that would arise later gained so much strength, even with no solid foundation. Because when two iconic figures create such an intense bond, the whole world pays attention. When discussing the behind-the-scenes of Elvis Presley's life, few figures stand out as much as Priscilla Presley. And when discussing deep friendships, few are as iconic as Tom Jones's with the King of Rock. That's why, when years later rumors linking Tom and Priscilla began to circulate, the public reacted with surprise, curiosity, and even confusion. It's important to understand how these rumors began, why they became so widespread, and most importantly, what was truly behind this story. A story that mixes friendship, shared memories, and the heavy burden of living under constant public scrutiny. To understand this chapter, we need to go back in time. Priscilla Presley was a major figure in Elvis's life. They married in 1967, had a daughter, and lived together until their divorce in 1973. Despite the separation, Priscilla and Elvis maintained a respectful relationship, especially for their daughter, and Priscilla remained present in Elvis's life and memory. After Elvis passed away, she took on the responsibility of preserving his legacy, becoming one of the most important custodians of the image, memory, and cultural heritage he left behind. Now, where does Tom Jones fit into this? The truth is that Tom met Priscilla long before any rumor ever surfaced. They were part of the same social circle, especially during the Las Vegas years when Elvis and Tom were performing in the city. Tom Jones was around the couple at events, gatherings, and private parties. It was a cordial, friendly relationship, completely natural within the artistic environment where everyone constantly crossed paths. What many fans didn't know is that the friendship between Tom and Priscilla continued even after Elvis's death. It wasn't a secret. They shared mutual friends, enjoyed frequenting the same places, and above all, carried a very deep emotional connection. Both had loved and lived alongside Elvis in different but equally meaningful ways. That bond naturally brought them together. Decades passed, and in 2017, a spark ignited a media wildfire. Tom Jones had lost his wife, Linda, after many years of marriage. He was emotionally shaken. During a period when he sought support, it wasn't strange that he grew closer to old friends. Priscilla, who had also experienced the loss of someone significant and the pressure of public life, was one of those friendships that offered genuine understanding. They were seen together at a restaurant in Los Angeles. It was a simple dinner, but within hours, it turned into an international headline.
Websites and tabloids began publishing speculations. Some suggested Tom and Priscilla were having a discreet romance. Others went further, insinuating that this connection had old roots, something that was never more than fiction created to sell papers. The public reacted instantly. For many Elvis fans, the idea of Priscilla being involved with a close friend of the king sparked intense emotions: surprise, disapproval, curiosity, nostalgia. For others, it seemed natural that two widowed, mature people with similar experiences would support each other. As the rumors intensified, Tom Jones decided to speak out. In interviews, he made it clear that there was no romance. He said Priscilla was just a friend, someone he had known for decades, and whom he respected and cared for. He stated he was surprised by people's imagination and that their friendship had always been public, nothing hidden or mysterious. His response was firm, calm, and consistent with everything he had ever said about his personal relationships. Priscilla also addressed the subject on television. She emphasized that Tom Jones was a dear friend, that they spoke often, and that they supported each other as friends who had gone through deep losses. She said she found it amusing how any casual meeting between celebrities could be transformed into a romantic narrative. And she made it clear that she respected Elvis's memory far too much to feed speculations that could create unnecessary noise or misunderstanding. And now, I need to know your opinion, because this is one of the most discussed points among fans to this day. When you first heard the rumors involving Tom Jones and Priscilla Presley, what was your reaction? Did you think it sounded plausible? Did you find it absurd? Or did you see it as just media exaggeration? Comment below what you truly believe. Your opinion is very important to understand how fans interpret this highly debated chapter in the story.
But if both denied it, why did the rumors continue? The answer lies in the power of narrative. Elvis Presley isn't just an artist, he is a cultural myth, and anything involving his name gains enormous proportions. When you add to that a powerful friendship like Elvis and Tom's, and the symbolic weight of Priscilla as guardian of the king's legacy, any detail becomes fuel for stories. A casual dinner becomes a theory. A conversation becomes suspicion. A presence at an event becomes a headline. Another factor contributing to the growth of these rumors is something subtler: the absence of detailed explanations. When artists try to enjoy private moments, even something as simple as a friendly dinner becomes a mystery. And where there is mystery, there is speculation. Tom and Priscilla have always been discreet, and that discretion was interpreted by some as proof of something that never existed. It's essential for Elvis fans to understand that these rumors do not diminish the king's memory, nor do they tarnish his friendship with Tom Jones. On the contrary, they highlight how the bond between Elvis, Tom, and Priscilla was so strong, so meaningful, and so human that it continues being discussed decades later. The fact that Tom and Priscilla maintain mutual respect and admiration for Elvis's memory shows that his legacy remains alive, not only in music, but also in the relationships he left behind. Thus, when we look at this story, we realize that what truly matters is not the sensationalist rumor, but what it reveals about the bonds built over years. Tom Jones and Priscilla Presley were essential parts of Elvis's life, each in their own way, and their closeness represents a natural chapter in a story filled with emotions, loyalties, losses, and shared memories.
When we analyze the friendship between Elvis Presley and Tom Jones and the rumors that later involved Tom and Priscilla Presley, we reach a fundamental point of the narrative: the meaning of all this for culture, for fans, and for how we understand the behind the scenes of one of the greatest legends in music history. This chapter is not just about rumors or social encounters. It is about legacy, identity, influence, and how extraordinary people leave marks that cross generations. The starting point is understanding that Elvis wasn't just extremely famous. He was, and still is, a global cultural force.
His music, his style, his presence, his impact all shaped generations. And because of that, anyone who was close to him carried, in some way, the responsibility and honor of being a witness to moments the public would never see. Tom Jones was one of those witnesses, and Priscilla Presley became one of the guardians of that universe. Together, they represent different aspects of the emotional, artistic, and personal life Elvis lived away from cameras. The influence Tom had on Elvis is a key part of this legacy. After years working in films, Elvis faced a turbulent phase in his career. He missed the energy of the stage, the connection with the audience. It was watching Tom Jones in Las Vegas delivering a vibrant and soulful performance that reignited Elvis's passion for singing live. From that moment on, Elvis's Vegas performances gained renewed strength, marking an unforgettable era in music history. And it's remarkable that a young Welsh singer was able to spark that in him. On the other hand, Elvis's influence on Tom Jones was equally profound. Tom always said he saw in Elvis a reflection of everything an artist could be: magnetic, elegant, vulnerable, intense, emotional. Elvis had an almost supernatural ability to connect with the audience, something Tom admired and adopted as inspiration. And more than that, Tom learned from Elvis that music is not limited to technique, it's about soul. That explains why Tom still carries deep respect for his friend's memory and speaks about him with rare emotion. This is a point many fans don't know, but completely transforms how we see their friendship. The connection between Elvis and Tom was essentially emotional. It wasn't just an exchange of artistic ideas, it was an exchange of feelings, vulnerabilities, fears, pressures that only someone living at the top could understand. They talked about career, but also about loneliness. They talked about demands, but also about simple moments of joy. Elvis didn't have many true friends in the industry, and Tom managed to break through that barrier. That explains the depth of Tom's admiration to this day. Now, when we add Priscilla to this equation, we understand something even more complex. She was the link between these two worlds. Priscilla wasn't just Elvis's wife. She helped shape his public and private identity. She saw Elvis in his most vulnerable and strongest moments. She observed his relationship with music, with work, with the responsibilities he carried. And she knew Tom Jones not as a simple colleague, but as someone who was part of Elvis's life, even if in a quieter, more private way. That is why the encounters between Tom and Priscilla many years later carry a symbolic weight far beyond rumors. They represent two people who lived alongside Elvis, each with their own role, their own pain, their own memories. And when we analyze this with sensitivity, we see something very powerful. Elvis's legacy isn't confined to records, films, or performances. It lives in the people who loved him, those who supported him, and those who were touched by his existence. The impact of this story for fans is enormous because it humanizes Elvis. Many times, his image is so grand, so perfect, so mythologized that we forget he was a human being surrounded by affection, friendship, insecurities, and desires like anyone else. The friendship with Tom Jones reveals an Elvis who needed inspiration, who needed conversation, who sought renewal. The respectful relationship between Tom and Priscilla shows that Elvis left real, deep bonds that continue to exist even decades after he passed. This is a point many fans don't know, but completely transforms how we see their friendship. The connection between Elvis and Tom was essentially emotional. It wasn't just an exchange of artistic ideas, it was an exchange of feelings, vulnerabilities, fears, pressures that only someone living at the top could understand. They talked about career, but also about loneliness. They talked about demands, but also about simple moments of joy. Elvis didn't have many true friends in the industry, and Tom managed to break through that barrier. That explains the depth of Tom's admiration to this day. Now, when we add Priscilla to this equation, we understand something even more complex. She was the link between these two worlds. Priscilla wasn't just Elvis's wife. She helped shape his public and private identity. She saw Elvis in his most vulnerable and strongest moments. She observed his relationship with music, with work, with the responsibilities he carried. And she knew Tom Jones not as a simple colleague, but as someone who was part of Elvis's life, even if in a quieter, more private way. That is why the encounters between Tom and Priscilla many years later carry a symbolic weight far beyond rumors. They represent two people who lived alongside Elvis, each with their own role, their own pain, their own memories. And when we analyze this with sensitivity, we see something very powerful. Elvis's legacy isn't confined to records, films, or performances. It lives in the people who loved him, those who supported him, and those who were touched by his existence. The impact of this story for fans is enormous because it humanizes Elvis. Many times, his image is so grand, so perfect, so mythologized that we forget he was a human being surrounded by affection, friendship, insecurities, and desires like anyone else. The friendship with Tom Jones reveals an Elvis who needed inspiration, who needed conversation, who sought renewal. The respectful relationship between Tom and Priscilla shows that Elvis left real, deep bonds that continue to exist even decades after he passed.